everyone's own experience is unique. So you need to create these safe spaces where you can just hear people out.
Hailey, welcome to POVz. I know it's only one of your first days in New York
City.
City.
Isn't this an exciting thing to do in my first few days?
Thank you for choosing to spend it with me here on the couch. I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me on the couch. I feel really honored. I'm really happy that I have a chance to sit here too.
I'm honored. I feel like you and I have so much in common, so I want to dive into all the things that make you you. And I always start out each conversation with somewhat of a spicy question. So,
okay.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for the spice.
If a topic can be taboo, can that ever be a good thing?
I don't think that these things that we're uncomfortable talking about should be things that are left uncomfortable. The taboos should be removed from them. Keeping these things stigmatized can be dangerous at the end of the day. Whenever something is taboo, I like to kind of ask myself, why is it taboo in the first place? Like, who made it so that talking about this thing should be something that you're shamed for, or you feel ashamed when you bring these conversations up, or you feel uncomfortable, like you start blushing, like, why is that? There isn't really like a tangible good answer, like a valid reason for something to be shied away from. I don't see how keeping certain things taboo could be a good thing.
I can definitely relate to that feeling of like my cheeks getting flushed and feeling nervous to talk about certain topics. What are some of those topics for you?
A lot of the things that go on in our bodies, you know, bodily fluids, like these are all taboo things that I still think about before I say something. I'm raising my awareness in a way where I'm like, okay, wait, I feel myself getting a little uncomfortable. I feel myself getting shy. Like it's almost like a part of me kind of sees myself doing that from the outside. Like I become like a viewer to myself doing that. And I'm like, okay, let's make a conscious effort to reverse that. Even if it makes me a little shy, especially in my videos, I'll talk about sex and sexuality. Throughout history, these are things that we've been kind of told, like, you need to keep this private, you know? It's nobody's business. Like this term, like TMI, too much information, like TMI. It's like, why? Like who determines that that's too much? Like who made those lines for us? And whenever I catch myself, I guess, getting like red in my cheeks or just like feeling a little uncomfortable, I kind of take it as a personal challenge where I'm like, no, like this is a challenge, let's overcome it together.
I love that. I think that's ultimately how we grow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the first time you felt yourself kind of looking in on that feeling?
Mm-hmm.
What do you attribute that to? Was there a moment in your upbringing?
I'm Turkish. Like I was born in Turkey. I lived in Turkey for almost half my life. And I grew up in an environment where some of these like topics were, you know, stuff that you keep to yourself. Even when it came to like people in my family, like people in my close bubble. I remember getting my period for the first time and I like wanted to share it with my mom. And she was just like, you know, here's a pad, here's this, here's that. You're gonna have to go figure it out. And I don't think she meant it in a malicious way where she wasn't, you know, she was like neglecting me or anything. But I think it's also because she didn't grow up talking about these things comfortably with her own mother. If you haven't had that personal experience yourself, it's hard to carry it on and do it for somebody else. So I remember kind of feeling a little alone. And then the more I filmed my videos and I would have other girls anonymously sending in their questions to me, I guess I kind of saw like a younger version of myself in them. And that's, I think, the first time that I kind of turned inwards, where I was like, wait, why did I think like this to begin with? What was it in our culture that kind of made me think other people, you know, shouldn't know about these things and we should keep it to ourselves?
Wow.
It was really those videos. I think like while I was helping other people, they were helping me kind of understand the culture around these topics.
Yeah, and I'm sure talking about them helps you process
it.
it
100%.
too.
Yeah.
I think that moment that you described where you were confronted with getting your period and you weren't even able to just talk about what you were going through. How did you get from point A to point B as someone now who is so open about the things they care about? I mean, creating a card game and a platform to talk about these issues. What gave you the courage to actually start those conversations?
I think it started in my home where it was like rebellion against my parents at first. I remember when I first moved to LA, like, and LA is such a crazy city where everyone dresses kind of how they want to, and I was just freshly in the city trying to figure out what to do, and I would experiment with my clothing, and then sometimes my parents would tell me like, you can't wear that, like that's too revealing or that's too much. And I remember being like, yeah, but like everybody else is wearing it. What does the clothes I wear have to do with anything in relation to my sexuality? Kind of like building up these facts that I could bring up during arguments to my parents, being like, well, actually, I should be able to wear this because XYZ. And then they kind of started realizing, okay, well, she has a point. And then I kind of used that courage in my videos too, where I was trying to tell other people why they should be comfortable doing the things that they want to, and they shouldn't allow other people to tell them like, you can't do this. I think when I moved to LA and I started making my videos and then gaining a bit of success and seeing all the positive feedback where people would be like, this has really helped me. So I kind of saw that chain reaction of this is actually benefiting people that are watching me, that have gone through really similar situations as me. At first I was uncomfortable, but let me keep doing this because this is helping people. And to this day, even though we've definitely, like, from that point A to B, like, we've gone through so many layers where every video I keep getting a little bit more open, a little bit more honest, the topics get a little heavier. I kind of enjoy going against the norm. Now I kind of get like a kick out of it where I'm like, I like shocking people with my videos title where it's like orgasming. I want them to start thinking about why they're feeling uncomfortable in the first place, which is why this has been such an important topic for me to cover on any of the things that I share on social media.
I think it's so important that we lean into those topics. I think it's so cool that you've embraced those taboo themes because that's what encourages more people to talk about them.
Definitely.
In thinking about some of those topics that you said you've been making videos about, do you think there's a double standard when it comes to these topics in thinking about what women get shamed for talking or not talking about versus men?
In one of my most recent Girl Talk videos, we were talking about masturbation and how it's such a stigmatized topic for women especially, but for guys, there's like 1,000 ways to say the word masturbation. I feel like it comes up in movies and TV shows all the time, and it's just so normalized. Even in our daily lives, like at school, it would be stuff that, you know, you would hear, whereas like if a woman is talking about like self-pleasure, it's like a whole new different thing. Even when I talk to my really good like close friends and I'm like, so like, what do you do? I see them tense up a little, or they're like, oh, you know, that's not really my thing, or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's totally normal for it not to be your thing. We can't just like be loud about it. There's definitely a double standard on what we are allowed to be loud about and what we're not allowed to be loud about, because I think it goes back to this cultural thing of, you know, women must be pure, and it's all these like figures throughout history that we've kind of idolized. Whereas, you know, if a guy is going around hooking up with a bunch of people, no one's gonna be like, oh, you're a whore. You know, it's just so like, you're a player, you know, you got game. But if a girl is doing it the same exact thing, you automatically have a label attached to you. We just need people to be outspoken about it so that people can realize.
Do you think in order to destigmatize these topics, we just got to get more people to speak up about them?
I really do think so. I think it really starts at the fundamentals of things. I should be able to talk to these things with my parents and my sister. And once I have got that base covered, then I can take it to my friends. And once I can take it to my friends, I could take it into the classroom and school. And I think it creates this like domino effect.
I love how you talked about we got to level up, right? You start with your first support network and then you can take it to your friends, your classmates. What about to people you disagree with? Are you able to have conversations with people on these hard, divisive issues who disagree with you?
I think that especially with the climate of social media now, everything's been so polarized. I feel like you use this word a lot, like echo chamber. If something doesn't fit within your echo chamber, people like automatically are like, I'm just not gonna talk to you because I'm not gonna waste the time to do that. Everyone's own experience is unique. So you need to create these safe spaces where you can just hear people out. A lot of people with like female organs don't necessarily identify as a woman. So maybe there's overlap in certain experiences that you go through, but not everything. You really need to be able to hear someone and their POV, their perspective, where they're coming from, without really putting the judgment in there, so that we can learn to grow from each other. We have so much like accumulated like intergenerational information on what it means to go through the woman's experience, but we just haven't created the spaces where we can safely hear each other out. So I feel like a lot of the times it gets blocked because we've kind of, you know, labeled it as awkward. If you were to say it out loud, you just keep it and then no one else gets to hear it. That's what I don't really like about the algorithm that's been created on these apps and like this media that we consume, because it really pushes people towards like opposite ways where it makes it hard for them to find common ground.
Completely, which is why we need more people like you in the world creating tools, games to really bring us back together and break open those echo chambers. So Hailey, I'd love to take this conversation to the next level and maybe do a card from Boobler.
Okay, let's
Can we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, pick a juicy one.
Okay. Most women poop while giving birth. How do you feel about that?
I, to be totally honest, am terrified of the idea of giving birth. I think because of that reason. I love my partner. He would never make me feel shame for any of these things. He is in med school and he wants to talk about this stuff and has brought it up before, but I shut him down.
And why do you think you shut him down?
I think because I've been ingrained in my mind to think that these things are disgusting. Like I still won't even go to the bathroom in front of him unless the door is closed. It's something that I'm still working on. He's made me feel so safe to talk about those things and is always trying to push me. But for some reason, it's so deeply ingrained in me when it comes to those bodily topics, I really shut down. What about you?
I mean, personally, I think it's just like a fear of judgment. Maybe if I was the only one in the room and giving birth, I'd be like, oh, you know, it wouldn't really bother me that much. It's normal. Yeah. But because, you know, there's all these other people, even though no one's going to be judging you while you're giving birth, like you're pushing a human out of you. Totally. Like there's other things to focus on. It's definitely that fear of judgment that like, what are they going to think?
Hailey, I'm so excited to take us to our next segment on POVz, where we're actually going to bring in some alternative viewpoints from some Gen Zers out there.
Okay.
So keep an eye on your phone. We're going to send you some texts.
Okay.
And once you get it, you're going to read it out loud, and then we want to hear your POV. What does it say?
You once tweeted, NFTs are webkins for adults, and I'm LOLing. What's a trend you want to bring back in a new way?
Did you actually say that?
Yeah, I actually tweeted that.
I love webkins. They were like a defining part of my childhood.
Do you agree? Do you think NFTs are webkins for adults?
I mean,
I kind of
in the sense that you collect them like Beanie Babies,
exactly.
sure.
Like,
but they're more tangible, whereas NFTs are like digital.
I'll have a friend being like, you want to look at my new penguin I got? Or you want to look at my new ape I got?
So what is a trend you would want to bring back?
I love VHS cameras. I'm a vlogger. You know, my camera comes with me everywhere I go, and it's this Canon that like autofocuses whatever, and like sometimes when I'm editing it, I'm like editing it to perfection. But those VHS cameras that people like pull out of their pockets, I love that it's so like authentic. It's in the moment. There's like some like there's like a character to the stuff. So that's something that I think would be really cool if we brought it back.
Yeah. I mean, is it authentic and in the moment, or is it now more of an aesthetic?
I would like to believe that there is like a layer of authenticity, even if you're buying it to be cool and like fit in with the other people on Instagram. Whether you want it or not, it's like there is that sense of like it was shot in the moment and there's probably one of that picture. Film photos always end up looking better because you didn't really think about it that hard. Totally. I think that's a trend I would want to bring back. I think it should be way harder to immigrate to America.
What are your thoughts?
It's so hard to immigrate to America. I started my immigration process probably in 2008, and I consider myself someone who got lucky during my immigration process. My family won green cards in the green card lottery, which is not something that even exists anymore.
Wow.
It was 2008 when we won our green cards, and to us we were like, oh my god. And when I tell people that, they like think I won the actual lottery. I'm like, no, it's completely different. It's a green card that allows you to come live in the US. You're not a citizen, but even then, like I just became a citizen last summer.
Wow.
And especially looking at it like from my parents' perspective who don't speak English fluently, we would have to go to these immigration offices. Like I was 8 years old going to these immigration offices and like doing blood work because they need to make sure that you're, you know, you go through a medical checkup. And even when I would come into the country, I still remember my parents being like, okay, like the kids should go first so that we can give off, like we could look like a family unit. It's nerve-wracking going through those immigration officers. Then when I had to become a citizen and I had to study for this test. And I had some of the most hard conversations when I went into that USCIS building. It should be harder to become an immigrant. It's so hard. Wow. It costs a lot of money too. Like, people need to hire lawyers to go through the process. And this is just like doing it in like a, you know, on the paper, like following the stuff. Yeah. Like, it is so hard. I don't think it could get harder.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I think that's probably what that person is missing, right? Someone's real, tangible experience.
Exactly.
That was such a long journey for you and your family. And maybe that person just hasn't met someone who's gone through it.
Yeah. My sister's graduation from high school was the same day and time as my oath. I had to give this oath saying, you know, I'm loyal to America and I want to be a citizen. I remember begging the USCIS officer, being like, this is my sister's high school graduation. That happens once in her lifetime. Like, can you please give me the next day or like a later time in the day? And you know what he said to me? He looked me dead in the face and he said, do you want to be a citizen or not? On top of all the challenges that I already go through of being a woman and trying to work and be an entrepreneur, I kind of need to like show to people around me that I deserve a seat at the table. Like, it's an extra pressure that I kind of put on myself, probably, honestly.
No, that's a lot of pressure, for sure. It probably makes you sometimes feel like you have to work twice as hard in order to just be a citizen.
Some things should be left not talked about. Things are taboo for a good reason. We don't need to hear all about your sex life on the internet.
Sounds like a personal attack.
Yeah, I feel like, do I know this person that sent this to me? We need to have a talk. I disagree so hard. I feel like the dangers of not talking about these things are way more important to tackle than like making someone uncomfortable because they don't want to hear about my sex life. We hear stories, especially like young girls who don't even know what sex is because their parents never, you know, their parents thought it was inappropriate to talk about it, or they talked about it in a way where it was just like covered, you know, just like these like weird lingos that they make up instead of just being able to say sex, vagina, penis, because, you know, maybe they feel a little uncomfortable. They don't want to bring it up to their kids. And then these kids have no idea what these things are. And then they go through really traumatic experiences because they were just not educated, or they didn't have the knowledge as to what was happening to them in that moment to begin with. That is something that's way harder to reverse on the long run than just having that uncomfortable conversation to begin with. We get worried and anxious about a lot of things that we could really put our minds to just ease if we had an open conversation to begin with. Also, like, sex is fun. Like, why would I not share my tips on the internet if it's gonna help someone have a good time? Like, hello, like, I'm helping you here, you know?
Totally. No, I'm so glad you brought that up, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I think that's
of course.
something that hopefully will help people realize too, that these are real implications that happen if we're not talking about these issues. It's not just trying to keep things quiet, like they actually have real world impact.
Women in America shouldn't complain. Go somewhere like the Middle East. There, you'll die if you're open about your sexuality.
What do you think?
In the back of my head, I don't know if I ever like said this out loud. I'd be like, oh, girl, like, if only you knew what my girlfriends back at home in Turkey, and Turkey is also like, you know, it's a part of the Middle East, it's close to Europe, it's a little bit more progressive than a lot of the other countries in the Middle East. When I lived there, like, I would have to come home before it was dark out because my parents would get worried that something would happen to me. If I was on the bus and I was the only girl left on the bus, I had to get off because I was scared that if there was another guy on the bus, they could do something to me, because we would hear stories about this often. It's getting better, but it's still a very real part of reality. So when I would have a girlfriend here in Los Angeles complaining about her boyfriend not being able to sleep over at her house, I would have thoughts in my head being like, oh, if only you knew. But I think that's wrong. I think we're all on the same journey. We just might be at different points of the journey. I think the end goal for all of us is the same. Some of us are just a little bit more ahead because we were born in a more lucky situation. But I don't think telling someone that's ahead of you to stop complaining is helping you or your case at all. We all help each other, push each other forward. And maybe those people that are a little bit ahead can, you know, turn around and see, who can I help? Who can I help bring to where we're at? Because we have the resources now that they don't.
Absolutely.
So I don't agree with that anymore. I've definitely fallen into those like thinking patterns, but I catch myself and I tell myself, no, that's wrong.
I'm so glad you brought up that story too, because I think we forget that perspective. We lack sometimes the experience in other countries, other societies, other cultures. And I don't think we should ever fault someone for their feelings and validate how people are feeling always. But at the same time, you know, there is something to be said about things could be worse, and it's all perspective.
Boobs shouldn't be in art or on advertisements. It's not quirky or empowering at all. Hashtag don't free the nip. Oh my God, why is this person so mad?
This person is coming for you.
Yeah, oh my God. Literally, I have a game called Boob Blurb, and they said no boobs.
So what do you have to say to that person?
I'm so sorry that society has pushed you to think like that, because I definitely think that a lot of these thoughts that we have in our head, we didn't even come up with them ourselves. Like the fact that like boobs shouldn't be, like you can't post a picture of boobs on Instagram or it'll get taken down. I feel like we believe certain like concepts just because like it's been passed on for generations and generations, and now we just like take them as truth. Our prejudice is just built up so strong that we don't even like ask ourselves like, wait, why do I think like that? It's just a normal part of our bodies. It's normal. Let's normalize it together. Let's not look at a woman weird if she's pulling out her boob to breastfeed her baby. That is her baby that she pushed out of her vagina. She brought this creature into the world, and like she's able to feed it with a liquid that is coming out of her boob. Like, do we not realize how magical and like how awesome that is? To me, it's so impressive. Like the design that went behind that is so impressive. And you're telling me to cover it up? Like, it's cool. I want it to be normalized. I don't agree with that. Free the nipples all the way.
It makes you wonder how these things came to be. And I'm glad you brought that up. Like, who invented these rules? Who created the system? Because so much of what we inherit today has been designed, both for good or for bad, and we gotta keep questioning.
Hailey, drop a hot take.
I feel like you have so many good ones.
My hot take is I don't want to have kids. And a lot of people say to me, why? Like, why are you just trying to be quirky? Like, you don't want children? Like, it's just like the cool thing nowadays. And I'm like, no. And it really confuses me when people in our day and age are getting pregnant. I'm like, do you guys not watch the news? Scientists are out here saying in 30 years, we're gonna be facing climate change's consequences that are irreversible. So even though like maybe you're good, our generation is good, and maybe like, let's say our kids are good, their kids are not going to be good. And with the way things are going, it doesn't really look like anyone is willing to give up any of the power or authority they have for the greater good. It's like that movie on Netflix, Don't Look Up, where everyone was saying hello, and like people are just like making a joke about it.
Right.
Like, you know, that's my hot take. I wish I could have kids, and that would be awesome if I could bring a mini me into the world. But I feel like I was just kind of born into a generation where like the ability to do that without the consequences was taken from me, like as a Gen Zer.
But I respect where you're coming from completely. I think what a lot of older generations don't understand is that a lot of these issues that we see today have fallen on our shoulders. And we don't see the example before us of people truly sitting down and coming to the table to solve them. That also has irreversible effects. It makes us feel that there aren't solutions, but if there are, it has to come from us. Thank you for sharing that. That fear is very real. To wrap up, the first time you're coming on POVz, because I know this will only be the first time.
Thank you.
If you had a megaphone and that megaphone could reach every person in our generation right now, what would you say to them?
Truly live your life the way that you want to and embrace your unique personality to the maximum potential, because we really only come here once. Be vulnerable, because that's how you're going to meet people along the way, and that's how you're going to create a life for yourself, really, that you can look back on and be like, I'm glad that I lived it that way.
This was one of my favorite conversations I've ever had on the show. You are incredible. I loved hearing more about your journey, your life, coming to America, all of the next pieces of your journey that will continue to make you you, and that message of staying true to who you are and being yourself to the maximum degree is something that I think everyone needs to hear. So thank you for being on the show. I can't wait for all the conversations to come. You're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and making me feel so safe, and like I feel like your energy allowed me to be vulnerable on the couch, so thank you for creating that for me.
Bring it in. So happy you came.
Thank you for having me. This was like a great first week in like
oh my God.
New York
Yeah, you're
activity.
in New York now.
I know.
How you feeling?
I feel good.
Do you feel like we talked about everything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think like even we got into things that I didn't even think were gonna come up.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm
amazing.
glad we did.
I really appreciated all of your personal anecdotes. Those are the stories that I think people can relate to most. And I just so appreciate you being vulnerable to share them.
Of course.
Before you go, can we take a selfie?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.